Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at that sky behind me. Hi, Lorraine. Hey, Sue. Hello, everyone. Hi, Diane. Michelle here. Grüß Gott. Guten Tag. Hi, everyone. um, yeah, pink hand. Mine are kind of pink. I have sunscreen on today, ladies and gentlemen, because it is so crazy gorgeous. Hi, Margaret. Um, it's just pretty amazing out here. Casey, it's nice to see you there, Casey. So, everyone, it's lovely to have people joining on. I don't think we're officially on time. So it's fun, Lynn. Hi, Beta. Nice to see you. Um, hey, Julia, Elise, there you are. Hi. I just left a message. Hey, Anna, nice to see you there. I had just left a message for Elise because, bonjour, Hélène. Because, of course, I will be in August in Glasgow. That's in Scotland, by the way. But I am not there today. I am here in Montreal. The sky it is going to be, I'm not kidding, it's going to be a high of 25 degrees. Now, the last time you saw me in the sun, or in the hot sun, was, of course, in Oaxaca, Mexico, 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago. And so now it's warm here, but it's snowing at home. For those of you wondering about very hi Nelly, a nice uh, Nicole up, yeah. I'll be in Edinburgh too, so I'm going to catch up with Paul, of course, which will be fantastic. But that's all a few months away. But here we are. So I just hi, Chair. I just want to say a quick hello first of all, everyone. So hello, my name is Patrick, and I should say bonjour parce que nous sommes à Montréal. This is the second largest French-speaking city in the world after Paris, and I'm down by the whole canal system here now. Montreal is, of course, an island. Faith, of course you can. It's only 9 degrees higher today, Paul. But I want to show you some really cool houses. So Montreal, of course, is an old city in North American sense. Hochelaga, if you go back into the indigenous language, this was the home of the Algonquin peoples, unceded territory in many cases. But Jacques Cartier arrived here, and then Maisonneuve established a town. In fact, let's turn around for a sec. We're going to walk over there. But they established town, third one. So first you had Quebec City, then Trois-Rivières, and then they established town right down around this point here. There's the museum to the founding of Montreal, and we'll go down and walk through the old town today. Thank you for asking. And my gorgeous little boy, who is obviously about a centimeter smaller than me, hi Marion, is still in the air. So they backed away from the gate in Brisbane on time, and then sat there for 2 hours with some problem. But so he will have been on that plane about 18 hours by the time he lands. So once I finish with all of you, about a little bit after he should be landing. So the picture's great today. So it could have been the storms over in the UK, but we're down here. So Montreal is an island. Well, the temperature's saying a high of 25 today, Nat. It's not there yet, but I'm really here. I'll give you the ultimate selfie here. Look at me. See, shorts, and I'm already kind of hot today. So that's how beautiful it is. And say it is snowing at home. Hey, bonjour, un plaisir de voir ici. So check out these cool houses. This was an interesting, oh, it's a lovely day. This was now they're worth about $1 million a piece, but this all goes back to that Expo 67 as well. And Safdie is the famous architect. Um, I'm so glad, sorry, I didn't, so glad you were doing this. Oh, it's all right, Yvonne. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. So yesterday, of course, I did a walk up in the old Golden Square Mile. And of course, we went up to Leonard Cohen. Today, my group are actually over in the Science Center over here. And I'm down by the Old Town. We're going to walk up and, of course, see Notre Dame. Last night, I was up at the cathedral for that sound and light show that they do. Longest I've spent in a church in years and years and years. But it was just beautiful. Now, there's nearly 30 bridges on and off this island. It's surprising to everyone that it is an island. It's we're still really hundreds of kilometers before you even get to brackish water. So we're way up the St. Lawrence. However, this carries on from here all the way up. Of course, you can keep going up the St. Lawrence right past Kingston, Ontario, then it's Lake Ontario, and then the Welland Canal to avoid Niagara Falls. And you can even get a ship all the way to Chicago. I mean, it's pretty incredible. But what's pretty cool down here is these islands were all, nous avons Hélène ici, so Ile Sainte-Hélène, that was all expanded. These are all expanded out as they dug out the subway system or the metropolitan system in Montreal here. And that's where the Villeneuve racetrack is, where they have the Formula One competitions. And also right there was the U.S. Pavilion back in Expo 67. And then, of course, then in 1976, they hosted the Summer Olympics. Julie, the donation, thank you for asking. The donation link is just in the description here. But thank you very much, and I appreciate that, everyone. So container ships come down, but they did build this whole canal system so the ships can keep going past Montreal. So what do we call that? That's called economically shooting yourself in the foot because the ship could keep going past the port. Nevertheless, the city has ebbed and flowed. It was the largest city in Canada until about 1977, 1976, and there was a big flight of capital from some political movements, but it really is a resurgent city now. You see all this new construction going up and a height limit on all those buildings. They're not taller than the mountain, Le Montreal, the Royal Mountain, but it was Ville-Marie when it was first founded. You might have heard on the news that recently there was a really tragic fire in an Airbnb down here. So there's some burn damage, which is just such a shame. But I just want to give you this little picture here as a pretty cool overview. Now, so we've got the mountain at the back and the downtown, but it's not a densely populated city. It's very spread out, about 4 million people in Greater Montreal. But this is where I give you a sense of the different Canadian and American ports. So this is that whole St. Lawrence Seaway that goes all the way up into the Great Lakes, which is pretty cool. And then for those of you who were in Michigan with me quite recently, we were talking about all of this. A massive, massive Lake Superior, largest freshwater lake in the world, and then how that goes in to Lake Michigan and Huron, because of course there's not 5 Great Lakes, there's 4, because Michigan and Huron are really one lake system. So we could spend a whole day just doing these little plaques about the construction of the port. I had so much fun having everyone here. Thank you for coming and hanging out. So I'm just going to head down the stairs. So I'll turn around and just, for anyone who's been coming on a little bit later, so hi there. It's great to have you here. I know there's a little bit of wind, so might get picked up in my headphones every now and then. But this is, I guess, my 3rd or 4th YouTube live. It's working really well. And I've been chatting with lots of other friends of mine who are guides about just how to get this going for those who are struggling with it. Oh, talking about that, there is that damn guide. You'd never get Nicole. I just want to say a quick hello. Yes, so my friend Mark, that damn guide from Amsterdam, is on board here. Mark just happens to be a brilliant guide and a really crazy guy too. He's a good friend of mine. And he and I will totally be doing a YouTube live with all of you in May when I'm over there. Get us into the old port. So obviously this was all founded initially by the French. Well, after it was Hochelaga and Algonquin lands all through here. And I have been telling you, and it's a very important thing, Valérie Plante, who's the mayor of Montreal, actually changed the flag of Montreal to add a white pine in the middle of it, acknowledgement of the indigenous inhabitants, or the original custodians of this land. I was just hoping it would start blowing up there, but it isn't. It's just hanging down. See if I can find you a flag elsewhere. Well, the French arrive and they form this town, and we'll go up and see the statue of Maisonneuve up there. And they form this land here. Quebec was obviously strategically, the city of Quebec, strategically so much more important because it controlled the entrance to the continent. But where Quebec was limited is there's not great farmland around it. In Orléans to the south, here around Montreal is very, very, very flat land, and very good for farming. And so therefore, it was just naturally an easier place to establish a larger community. And the old farms, the way they were laid out 350, 400 years ago, they're still laid out that way. It was a very sustainable system. We want to just show you this lovely reconstruction of a huge ship right in there. Isn't that fabulous? So, gentleman just coming down, so I don't want to get the camera right in his face. So let's go and wander around into the old town. But gosh, it's so nice and sunny. And by the way, I mean, we could do, well, this is where I keep trying to draw in friends of mine who are guides here in Montreal, because there's so many different tours you can do all along here. There's this huge amount of public art. But the whole redevelopment of these old towns is just great. It's a bit like the waterfront around Toronto, in different areas in the country. When you redevelop them, suddenly you see just how busy they get. Now, the dome in the distance is about the other end of what was historically the old port town, and that's the Bon Secours market. And it's a really fun market in there. So I was just giving you, that zoom is pretty good. sometimes it doesn't grab just immediately, but it's a nice zoom. And I'm very lucky. I didn't want to stay on the site too long because there was a train earlier, and I did do a virtual tour down here one morning last year, and I actually I ran out of time, and the train was still coming through, so I wasn't able to get across. But let's go across here. So we're down at the Grand Quay, right through here, and bike paths everywhere. And they were just saying, with the bikes here in Montreal, not only are they all out now, they're shared bikes, but they're going to work on studded tires for the winter so that you can bike year round. That's okay. Lynn, well, you say hi to your important phone call, but it's sure lovely having you here because you make our world so much better. Look at these old storehouses. I love the way they've been all sort of redone and fixed up. Let's come down to here. So I find this area really fun. Had dinner down here last night. It's now whenever you go out for dinner in this country, take lots of money with you. But there's great food in Montreal. Of course, it's really become a culinary destination. I actually put a lot of weight into Quebec City that way too, because they do so much farm to table in Quebec City, which is lovely. It says Porte de Mar up ahead. But down here in Yeoville, now there were a few people hanging around who I didn't think wanted to be filmed, but I just want to show you this monument here. There's one in Quebec City with the original settlers, and this is a monument to the original settlers of Montreal. So in Quebec, which is very different than a lot of other parts of Canada and North America, many French Quebecers can actually trace their family roots right back, a little bit like people say the Mayflower in the United States. But that's so hard out in the west of Canada, where there's so much more mixing. But historically, of course, there were only about 10,000 people that ever came over from France, mostly from Normandy and Brittany, and then from La Rochelle, they were the Filles du Roi. It's when Louis XIV sent over orphan women because they had a shortage of women here in the colony. So, I mean, amazing history. And of course, the oldest road in Turtle Island in North America, north of Quebec City, was between Montreal and Quebec City, 1707. I mean, it's an amazing bit of history. Here, I was just waiting for family to move for a second. I'll show you. Here you go. Can you imagine? So when they established Montreal, it was Ville-Marie the first time. I know that lights on there. It's hard to see. But there's Paul de Chamézy de Maisonneuve. We'll go see him in a minute. But they came and established this colony right here. Imagine how isolated. And then, of course, winter came and it all froze up. So different world. But let's head on up. We need to go up. I'm glad you're finding the audio great. I do want to say to everyone that obviously when I'm watching my stuff or I'm looking away, your chat comes up on my screen, which is fantastic. But it does actually fade away. So sometimes I miss it. But I can make it come back. So using YouTube Live has been a little bit of a learning process for me and for many of us, but pretty lucky that this platform's here. So I do appreciate you coming along on these tours. I love the fact that people can chat with each other. And if you happen just to be stopping by here, because it is live, and so you get people who come and go, if you're happy to subscribe to the channel, that's wonderful. And if you want to stay for some longer tours, that would be, yeah, absolutely, Mark. So that's a wonderful thing too. And lots of my friends, including Mark, who's here, and Anna's who's here, are going to be doing these live tours. So it's a nice way for us to connect. Hi from Connecticut, lovely to have you. If I drove straight south of here in 45 minutes, I would be at the border with Vermont. And so then it's about a half hour more from there, and you drive down into Burlington. Burlington's such an interesting place too, because it's the smallest, largest city of any state in the United States. A really friendly place. Now, this is the old customs house. As soon as you're here, I did do one, Julia. I actually did do a Burlington tour when I was down in New England last year. It was really fun to do. I don't have New England on my plans this year. I've just got a kind of different year. Du vrai poutine. But you're really the home. There's some debate. It's probably Sherbrooke. Here you can see the old custom house. Now remember, 1763, the French forces here capitulate. In fact, put down their arms so no one was killed, which is really nice. So this then becomes a British city. And principally, the migrations came from Scotland into here. So you have this very interesting mix of, as you call historically, kind of the two solitudes, this Scottish-British presence and, of course, the traditional French presence. So, that's the fusion. And then, of course, over time, as this was Canada's biggest city, this was the birth, for example, of the Jewish community in Canada. Um, and there's large migrations from Italy, from Greece, and so the mosaic, as we talk about, Nicole's trying to encourage me to go to have poutine. I think I'm a little bit poutined out, I gotta say. Um, I, I do find when I come down east here, I eat heavy food. Do you know where I eat a lot when I'm down in this part of Canada? I actually go to the Trois Brasseurs. It's actually a French chain, the Three Brewers, but they're Flamskirchen. Looks a little bit like pizza, but super thin. So it's a place I eat a lot when I'm in center of Canada because we don't have that particular group of restaurants in the west. But we need to make our way up towards La Cathédrale de Notre Dame. Now, I cannot take you inside. If there were a way for me to infuse a picture in here, um, hi, Auntie, nice to have you here. Um, it is so warm, Lorraine. Let's see, I'm in shorts. But I'm wearing my backpack, and it's actually a little hot. Now, these old roads here, if they feel sort of imperial British to you, it's because they really are. There's very little left. In Quebec City, of course, they preserved all the walls of the old city. They have not done that in Montreal here, and so it is quite a different environment. Now, Montreal is a much bigger city as well, of course, very, very spread out, and it is hard because the infrastructure as well takes a lot of work to do. See, I just tried to draw down. Ah, c'est la saison des crabes, c'est vrai. Um, and so you can chat here. Now, just to say again, it disappears on me. I can call it back, but it slides down so quickly. So, like when I'm crossing a street like this, I'm obviously watching my step and watching for cars, so not looking at the chat. But let's go up to the main square up here, and we'll go up and see Maisonneuve himself. And there's only a bit of scaffolding left on Notre Dame Cathedral. I think many people sort of believe this to be the most beautiful church, just from an artistic point of view, in probably all of Canada or North America. It is a dramatic church on the inside, but it's entirely, but it's all ticketed now to go in, so it's not a place that I can just stick my head in with the camera, unfortunately. But I'd love to. I do love when they redeveloped the whole port area here. They created all of these walking areas, which are really fun. And of course, young people and particularly artists have moved back down into this area. So Montreal is very much one of those cities, typically of North America, where during the kind of economic booms of the 50s, people, when they had kids, moved out to the suburbs, and it really expanded the city out. Now that there's a drive of life back down into the center here, it's added a lot to it. Now, one of the other really fundamental differences historically, which has faded now, is this was the one big city in Canada which had a renting culture. But that has gone away now. It really is an ownership culture. It meant that for a long time, it was an outstanding city for students because rents were cheap and apartments were big, and four big universities here, two in English, two in French. But now the cost of living, of course, has gone up when everyone started buying. So that's changed a lot of the kind of environment. And the other thing that's changed, there used to be a tradition here in Montreal, which was fascinating. You would sign, hi there, you would sign a 12-month lease from July 1st to July 1st. And so every July 1st, the city would explode with people moving. And you had to wait for anyone with a truck. They were your best friend. You paid them with pizza and beer. And you put everything out on the lawn because you never knew what time the truck was going to arrive. And then if you were moving to a smaller apartment and you didn't need something, you just leave it there. And so on July 2nd, everyone went out treasure hunting. But say a lot of that vibe has changed. It's much more a condo culture now. So let's just move up around. You're not able to tip on here, but thank you very much for asking. There's a link in the description, and I know it's a little bit cumbersome, but it's really the only option at the moment. So it's much appreciated if you just go in to the Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal link, custom link, and you're more than welcome. I don't know what the maximum you can give is. Maybe if everyone could try giving, was my joke. So, gentlemen's playing some music here. Look at that. So there is the statue. The Maisonneuve, 1642, 1642. And they established a small community where we were just walking, and then they gradually expanded up the hill here. So feel free to take some screenshots, and I know you're all learning. There is so much to talk about right in this square here. So obviously you have Maisonneuve, behind him, that original building with the lovely roof on it. Isn't the music gorgeous, everyone? I'm gonna have to give that man. Oh, good. I have. Look at that. I have. I have several coins in my pocket. Toonies, we have loonies and toonies in Canada. Toonies are the $2 coin, and loonies are the $1. Um, so it's quite fun. But I definitely am gonna. Hey, why don't we say hi to this gentleman? Because I'm gonna give him a tip anyway. Um, Thanks, Paula. So, some nice music here for a second, and then I'll tell you a bit more about the square. And see, he even has a license to do this. So, bonjour. This isn't live touring fun. Oh, he has a beautiful way about him. So up behind is the Bank of Montreal. And of course, the president of the Bank of Montreal was Sir George Stephen, who was then president of Canadian Pacific Railway, and he was born in Banffshire in Scotland. I took you to his house yesterday if you had happened to join me there. But I want to kind of show you one of my favorite statues. I've got lots of favorite statues, but first, let me see if I can get back far enough. Hi, Michelle. Get back far enough to show you Notre Dame up there. So they're still doing restoration works on it, but it is beautiful. So I was there for a sound and light show last night, which is worth it, I'll say. I think it was really, it's only about $8 or something. But see the lineup of people to go in right now, so it's always controlled. But historically, the west part of the island was the English part of the island. The east part was the French, and then you had different ethnic groups wedged in the middle. So, that's kind of the history of Montreal from that point of view. But they talk about this term historically in Canada. Thanks, Dan. Talk about this idea of two solitudes. Well, that's where this whole sculpture comes from, and it's a massive sculpture. So I have to walk between the two, but I love it. So this is an Englishman with a big nose, looking. Hey, Ken, with his nose turned up, instead of being pejorative and disgustive of the church there. But to see, he's got his puppy dog. And his puppy dog, which is an English pug, of course, is looking all the way down to the French woman who is looking up at the English bank or the British bank um, in a snooty way. And her French poodle is looking back. So the two dogs just want to play together and be friends. And the two people are really trying to maintain old divisions that don't need to be. And that's what's really happening in Montreal now. They're bridging all these different cultures and identities. And I think it is a really neat thing because it's also very honest. Actually, and we are getting a gorgeous image now of the Montreal flag up behind us there. And you'll see the white pine in the middle of it. So that's when they added that in. Oh, come on, wind. Everyone blow hard. I don't know. I don't think we're blowing. I bet you at least two people blew at their screen there. But is that right, Bar? Yeah, so true, isn't it? Here, let's go down. Yeah, if you're out on the west side, yeah, it's lovely to see, isn't it? So, hi, Anne. At least I didn't see you there. Sorry, hi, Anne. Oh, Lisa. Hey. Of course, Lisa and Mom, you would love that. Right? See how we're all together? Now, the one other favor I'll ask you to do, I don't know, again, how to do this. Mark knows this better than I do. But apparently you can actually kind of share this, so other people, I think there's a button, and then other people know we're live at the time. So, but here we are, just one more little view down here of Notre Dame, and then we will go up to the main square. So let's take a little stroll from here. What a perfect morning. So we were down at the Science Center early today. So I have a group of young people from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I changed the itinerary to include the Science Center because there's specifically an interactive hockey um, exposition there. So you can imagine just how excited they were. Because I think just about the whole group, men and women or boys and girls, play hockey. All of these streets around here are fascinating. So we're in the old, of course, this was the corporate, very, very British administered corporate essence of early Canadian economy. And then people lived about a 10-minute walk from here up towards the Golden Square Mile. If you go out east is where you see the old row housing. And that is, of course, because Quebec had the highest birth rate in North America for over 100 years. and a woman's average would be 10 children. And so, one or two of them would stay and work on the farm, and the others would have to come in and work in the factory. So that's how you had that sort of east-west division in the early days. Now things have changed so much. You'll see there's a lawyer walking up in front of us, and that's because um, we are just up from the main courthouses of the province of Quebec. And now this is a very interesting thing to talk about, everyone. Here in Quebec, you actually have two legal systems here, and it makes it very confusing for Canada overall. There is both a civil code, Napoleonic code, and a common law. So, and they go back and forth depending on what jurisdictional issue it is. And so that's why the Supreme Court of Canada always has three justices from the province of Quebec. That's not a guarantee because of language, it's guaranteed because of representation of two legal systems. Pretty fascinating if you're into that sort of thing, which of course I am. I'm interested in just about everything. Look at that, Le Montparnasse Brasserie. So many new restaurants. I don't know how new they are, but there's so many restaurants I want to try. I just can't eat enough, and I can't afford to eat in all the fancy places all the time. But you do have your traditional heavy Quebecois cuisine, like Nicole was mentioning earlier with the poutine and all the kind of heavy starchy foods. And of course, a lot of the old French Canadian cuisine really was heavy. Meat pies, because you were working outside so much. And winters are long and cold. And so there's a lot of logic behind that. But the modern influence is interesting. There's actually a ton of immigration into Montreal, specifically from France as well. And you hear it again and again and again. There's very, very, very low unemployment in Canada, and there was much higher systemic unemployment in France. But there's an old classic, Poutine Québécois. Bonjour. Oui, c'est beau quand même. So so over here is the Palais de Justice, right here. And then, by the way, another whole story for another day, another tour. Straight down there is probably the smallest Chinatown in any major city of Canada, but it's a very interesting Chinatown. So it's only about 2 blocks. They do have nice gates, but the reason why there's a Chinatown here in Montreal, well, of course, immigration, but specifically, and when I'm doing my tours in the west of Canada, hey, it's Vi. When I'm doing my tours in the west of Canada, you'll be aware I talk a lot about Chinese history. We say for every kilometer of train, 2 Chinese workers lost their lives. And then when they finished building the train, the government of Canada passed a head tax, making them pay to bring their wives over. And it was so high, it was $500. And it might as well have been $2 million. So it was so racist. And eventually they were treated so poorly on the west coast of Canada. A group of Chinese Canadians at that point got on the trains and took it all the way to Montreal. Now, in the early days, that would have been 9 days. And they came here and they were accepted, at least a little better from what I understand. And they went and set up laundries. And that's where that kind of tradition of the Chinese laundry comes from. And they set it up right around the train station where they could launder for people. So it's a very interesting history there. So again, legal courts around here. And we're going to go up because last year when I was here giving you all a tour, I wasn't able to really show you City Hall because it was so far behind scaffolding, but it's all looking a lot better now. And then we'll head up to the traditional square and we'll probably call it a day at about that point. But it is lovely if you can stay with me as long as possible because our dear friend Mark has explained to me that watching videos to the end is good for algorithms. But you know what? I can't really sleep about that too much. It's all part of the learning. Marguerite Bourgeois right here joins on la promotion de l'éducation. This is the early founding of education in New France. Now, of course, all of the education for the first 2 centuries really was all run by the church, really in many ways up to 1964. And there is not a postcard button. What you do is you do a screenshot. So it's really just dependent on what sort of computer you have. And but the screenshots really come out very, very well. Yesterday, some people in Europe, particularly the UK, were having fuzzy, but I think that was storms over there causing it. But people have been sending on photos. They're as good as postcards were on the now non-existent platform that we will never name again. Now we'll name it. But that's the city hall up ahead. That's where Valérie Plante is the mayor. And again, the previous 2 mayors are in jail. So this is why I mention the mayor so much because she's really cleaned up what was some serious problems with corruption here. And oh, you were kidding, at you. Okay. Um, these are so Cynthia. I'll tell you what. Real tortilla. Now I do eat tortilla more than I eat poutine, but I tend to eat it actually when I'm in Winnipeg because of the coureur de bois. Um, so the sorry, I was just what's the other question there? Ooh, the yeah, screenshots. Sorry. Oh, Cynthia, yeah. Some of these plugins, really, I need to get up to that. I believe the 4,000 hours watch, but we'll get there pretty soon. And then I think I have access to a lot more of that. So tortilla Paula is done in different ways, but it's basically a meat pie. If you have the really classic ones, it's both beef and pork and peas and gravy. And in one pie, you could maybe have um, so you guys, sorry, I didn't see you there, gorgeous. You could have like 4,000 calories. So again, if you were going to be paddling a canoe for 12 hours, that would make tons of sense. Now, this is something I'm just really proud of. This is the Montreal Declaration Against Racism. Yes, you know, Sayuri, I have heard um, of the shorts. I've never actually tried one, but isn't this wonderful to have a declaration against racial discrimination? I just think it's very important. Now, we get back to this two solitudes world. This is so, these two statues really do make me laugh. So this gentleman here, Vauquelin, was the person who was in charge of defending Fort Louisbourg. Fort Louisbourg was on Ile Royale, which you would now call Cape Breton Island. And that was defeated, of course, and he lost that battle, never ever set foot in what was Montreal. And you see him, and he's looking across at Admiral Nelson, put up by the English community up there, who also had absolutely nothing to do with Montreal. And so you've got the English monument and the French monument staring at each other for eternity, saying, "What are we doing here? We never went to war with each other, and we don't want to fight." So yeah, Louisbourg. So it is a lovely bit of history that way. Again, you've got these signs with their en français pour ceux qui parlent français. I mean, talk. Yeah, Nicole. When Nicole says like shepherd's pie, it sort of is. I mean, it's it is a different taste to it, but yeah, I had some the other night at a sugar shack, of course. And then, for those of you who don't come from this kind of our cultural tradition, you'd be stunned by the fact that we then pour a maple syrup over top, just to add to the sugar rush. So, you see, infused around here, some of these much older homes as well. Um, so it is, some of the food is fascinating. Bonjour. So the main port's down below. But let's go safely across the street here, and we'll head down towards the Marché Bon Sécure, um, which is really fun. I like the market. In fact, I haven't been there before. Look at me crossing the street on a red light. I am just such a rebel. It's nice to see. So the original City Hall was built in 1923, going through some lovely renovations, which you certainly do see the French influence in the architecture there, of course. If we had wandered straight up, by the way, I am just east of St. Lawrence Street, which is the real dividing thing. But if I walked up to those streets, you get up into the plateau area, and that's where you have a lot of the student housing and lots of other artistic communities. But I really love what's been happening down through this part of Montreal. Isn't it nice to see there's oh, sorry, my gimbal just had a little shiver. I don't know. I keep expecting one of my gimbals to finally fail only because I've put in so many hundreds of hours with them. But it's nice. Now this place will get busier, but today it's going to be crazy busy this afternoon. And I say that because, of course, the forecast is just so gorgeous today. Nice tomorrow. I am, just in case you're wondering, I am flying away 8 a.m. flight tomorrow, 8:10 I think, and I'm flying over to Calgary, and I'm going home for exactly 2 days, and then I'm going back Sunday night, and I leave at 8 p.m. Sunday night Calgary time, and I fly over to London. So that's how much I am traveling. Oui, Sayuri. So for again anyone who doesn't know my friend Sayuri here, Sayuri, Sayuri is a guide in Bahia in Brazil, and Sayuri does all sorts of fun, beautiful sunset trips. But she also does a huge amount of really meaningful Black history. And I learned so much from Sayuri about that history in Brazil down there. I've spent a long time around the history of enslavement in places like Cuba. Um, so, but of course, roughly 44% of all enslaved people who came to the Americas went to Brazil. And here in New France, there was enslavement. Some Canadians will think that they never had slavery in this country. That's not true. Um, so, yeah, exactly, Barbara. And there's St. Urban as well. Hi, Paul. Um, oh, so Paul, everyone did reach out to me, and Paul uh, is a classic guitar player, and he's actually found one of my dad's pieces. So, Paul, I just can't wait for you to record that, and we could share it. Sorry, I really feel like all of a sudden, I feel as though um, my my gimbal is just a little shaky. But let's just head up here. See this lovely old market up there, which is just gorgeous to see. And this, of course, can you imagine though if you'd left France or Britain or whatever and sailed up the river and then winter came, it all closed down, how isolated these early little communities would be. For a long time, Montreal was only about 10,000 people. It didn't really start to explode in population till the mid 1800s, when it no longer was actually in any way linked to France. And so much so, that's why our French accent is so different, because we all speak Old Royal French rather than Parisian French, which took over after the French Revolution. So that's one of the fundamental differences. Shall we try and go into the market, everyone? By the way, or we can go up. If you want to talk about modern Montreal, that tent in the distance there, that is Cirque du Soleil. And Cirque du Soleil is fantastic. Of course, there's 5 circus companies based here in Montreal. Huge part of the Montreal culture. And there, of course, Ferris wheel is pretty common and popular in so many cities now. It's quite fun to do on a day like today. It'd be fun. You look way out, and all of these hills that I'm walking on, these old, they call them volcanoes. They never were, they never erupted, but they're old magma chambers of basalt rock. It's so hard, it wasn't scoured away in the last ice age. But I think we do get, this one. Try and just take you through the market very quickly. Avec les boutiques. The roads built to stream of water. Well, where we almost started our tour, there was actually once upon a time a little creek that came down there. And so, yes, they were rebuilt for the melt to come down because, of course, they get on average 2 meters of snow in Montreal every winter. Here we are. So I think the reception is holding just fine. The only thing I don't have is something to measure my reception. And so there's a lot of First Nations, Indigenous art, and of course, dream catchers come from right around where I specifically live in the West. See, this is a really nice little spot down through here. Yeah, Cirque du Soleil is wonderful. Now, the controversy that does show up around it every now and then is the fact that so many people who apply to participate in it get injured because, of course, they do such extreme things. This is modern Canada to me. Look at all these gorgeous Inukchuks. Inukchuk, your stone person, very much a symbol of Canada and the North. And lots of soapstone over here, which is all Inuit. And of course, we always talk about Nunavut, the new territory up in the north of Canada, run totally for and by the Inuit people. But there's also Ungava in the far north of Quebec, which is Inuit. By the way, this store really does have good looking shirts. I think I should maybe invest in a good looking shirt. Or I should invest in one for my kid. It's fun to come into the market with everyone. Well, let's go find a spot where we can do a little Q&A. It's nice to connect with everyone out here. I'm gathering my group up about 2:30, heading out to the airport. They're flying home today. I'm actually staying one more night in Montreal because I couldn't get a flight out. It was easier to fly tomorrow morning. So at least I'm staying out at a really absolutely uninteresting airport hotel, but it does have a gym, and I'm just dying to get some sleeping in. So I think I'm just going to treat it like that instead of a day. This church up in the distance here was originally a French Catholic one, but was also then started doing Mass in English and in Irish, in the Irish language, in Irish Gaelic, as the Irish started to migrate in here. Massive migration, of course, out of Ireland in the 1840s, as we all know, during the Great Hunger. But more to the point, a huge number of Irish orphans were adopted in the French Canadian homes because, of course, they were Catholic, and there was a huge amount of compassion for the children. And it wasn't very long ago here in Montreal, they actually found a graveyard where they've been working on a new motorway, and they called it a famine graveyard. Of course, Irish parlance now, we don't call it the famine anymore, it's the Great Hunger. But they were able to do some testing, bone testing, on the people buried there, and it showed just how incredibly malnourished they were from that, mass um, emigration out of dear old Ireland. So, and I am mentioning Ireland a fair bit because I am heading over there. Of course, I'll be in Belfast again in a few days, and I might be not on YouTube Live, but on one of the uh, one of the paid sites. I'm planning on putting up a tour of the city of Derry because there's no one doing it, but it's a big out of my way thing. So I'm going to find I love doing these YouTube lives with everyone, but I will be putting up to pay for tours, particularly when I'm taking on extra costs. I think that's sort of a fair deal that way. So um, of course, Sayuri, I'm going to meet Paula. We weren't going to tell you. Of course, I'm going to meet Paula, um, who of course was so kind and picked Finn and me up from the airport last time we were in Ireland last August, and had so much fun with Paula. We're going to go for glasses of water and vegan food. I think that's our plan. So not 100% sure, but the name of this pier out here is Horloge, and that's because because Horloge, there's actually a clock tower out in the distance that you see here, and then there's part of the islands that I was showing you the map of out at the beginning. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much. Let's just go back where I can prop this up and we can have a nice little final chat together. But I want to thank you for hanging out with me today and making the time to fit us in. And as I say, some of my other guide friends are putting up their live tours in our Facebook group, the Camper Van group. And when I get a bit of downtime, I also want to give a space for my guide friends to have their details on my website, and we can get working on a more. I do pay for an interactive calendar, so um, um, and so I want to make that accessible, of course, to as many of my friends as possible because it's just hard to find all the information that's around all the time. Um, but it is very. Uh, Paula, I know you typed that ages ago. We've already moved on, Paula. I'm, I'm gonna that's, I'm gonna get you a nice vegan meal. It's on me. If there's any meat or any booze there, then it's your treat. And ladies and gentlemen, it's so nice to have you here. Well, thanks, Vi. I'm looking forward to flying home tomorrow, of course, because I haven't seen my kid I'm gonna see him for 2 days out of 6 weeks. Like, let's be honest, this is kind of a tough one. Um, and then I'll have a great time because I catch up with really yeah, Larry. Gonna catch up with some very, very dear friends always when I first get to London. And then of course when I'm in Ireland, I mean it's I'm not spending a lot of time around Cork, which is good news because I'm related to half of Cork. But with a name like Toomey, I sort of have to be. But I do want to give everyone a big hug. Well, thank you, Diane. It is. I mean, it's working really well. I know for everyone into this live streaming, it's so interesting. I see that there's been roughly 80 people here for most of the time together, which is just wonderful. I get a report at the end and it'll tell me like 200 and something, but it's people who are just flicking through. But if you hold people on, do I'm really not much of an ice cream person. I tell you what I am though, Barbara, is I'm a Innibaloo person. I really like some of the beers that are brewed here. In Quebec. Really like they sort of do the Belgian style, so nice view there. Look at that, eh? So it's so nice to connect with all of you. And like I say, if you can hit by the way, and I don't even know where to find it, so I can't be very helpful, but if you can hit that like button, I think that helps as well. But again, I don't really want to ask anything of you except to enjoy our tours and to come and hang out and keep spreading the word and subscribing and watching more tours and then donating when you can, of course, and then keeping your eyes out for my friends when they put their tours up as well, because like I say, I know I don't know um, uh, like where are those. Oh, is that right? That's interesting. That's very interesting, Liz. I'll have to learn about all of that. um, but I want to say that Vanessa had put one of her virtual tours up in our camper van group, and just between us, which I know she actually was thrilled. She said that she did better on that one than she did on a typical Hagel. So, you know what? And she's a brilliant guide as well. But big hugs to her. So, this is a way for all of us traveling folk to share. Um, Rosie, Pam's doing great. I do talk to Pam quite often, of course. Um, I could easily put one of these up. Like I could give her. She probably have to use my phone, but because of the login. But I could totally do one to set Pam up to do one. Finn will on this channel. Aaron and Patrick we talk to every day. They hung on yesterday. They watched this, and then we had a good talk. So they're going to have one up soon. So there's lots of people doing them. I had a voicemail back and forth with Paul up there in Scotland, and he's still working out the technical side. But yeah, so there's things to learn. So there's lots of people, and again, everyone's trying different things. This is the easiest way to come out and offer this as an open platform. Hands down, the easiest thing. And then we're going to have, again, I'm experimenting with a paid site on Saturday, but they're, really truly, I know they've been working hard, so um, I'm helping along on that one. But Beyonder, which we're all virtual. There you go, Paul, you're here, buddy. So as soon as we yeah, I think Vanessa has another one today. So Paul, you let us know when you're putting one up. And then Beyonder, who many of us have been on, is a very, very well run site. They've gone back to public tours. Now they cost more though. They cost $12 or something like that. But for the things that cost me a lot more, or like our beloved Leslie in Egypt, who's going paragliding, that's a big cost to her. So I'm a huge fan of that. Hi Samantha. So I see there's obviously people I've missed here, but I'm so glad you made it on, Paul. So and thanks for the messages earlier. So I'll talk to you soon. So ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time to arrête. So but I will show you once again just the clock tower out there, and there's the Villeneuve track, and I think probably up in Belfast. Yeah, I'll have to put on a feed with Paula there. Paula, I think we should do it before the pub, not after, just to be on the safe side. So, all right, now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go. Now, I really feel a need to warn you all that. That'll be with you, Mark. To warn you all that when I end it, apparently just ends super abruptly. Now, yesterday, many of you missed it because I was just about to give you the winning lotto numbers. But today, instead of giving you lotto numbers, I am going to give you right now the trick, the elixir of eternal life. All you need to do